Okay, let's unpack this. Picture yourself right now, maybe settled into your favorite spot.
Yeah.
The perfect reading lamp casting a warm glow, a good book open in your hands. It feels quiet, simple, comforting, doesn't it?
Totally. Just you and the words.
Just you and the words on the page. But what if that seemingly personal, solitary act is actually plugged into something much, much bigger? Something that has been seen as incredibly powerful, sometimes even, controversial or threatening throughout history and right now.
That personal connection to a book is definitely where it starts for so many of us.
Yeah.
But you're right, it quickly expands.
Yeah.
This deep dive is all about books and reading, sort of exploring the different facets of what it means to engage with literature in today's world.
We've pulled from a couple of different places today. One source is essentially a guide to leveling up your personal reading life.
Okay.
Full of practical tips, insights on finding your next great read, and even recommendations for the gadgets and gear that enhance the experience.
And the other takes us to almost the opposite end of the spectrum, digging deep into the history and the surprising present reality of banned books.
Right.
These are titles that have been challenged, suppressed, or removed, but in many cases have gone on to profoundly shape the world precisely because they sparked controversy.
So our mission today is to really understand both sides. The pure joy and sense of community that draws people to reading. And the absolutely critical importance of intellectual freedom, the act of reading, even seemingly innocent stories, has been opposed for centuries and continues to face intense pressure today.
Let's start with that personal side then, that feeling of being a reader and finding ways to make that experience richer.
Okay.
The first source we looked at from a community called Hooked to Books is really focused on helping you lean into being a book lover.
Yeah, it frames reading not just as a passive hobby, but as an active part of your identity. It's about embracing that.
Right.
They go through everything from the simple stuff like finding the most comfortable position to read in.
Yeah, the ergonomics.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or making reading a relaxing part of your bedtime routine, to building a physical library at home, or even preserving old books you cherish.
And they really get into the practicalities. The source details reviews of all sorts of reading aids, the best book lights, different e-readers, reading glasses, even specific chairs designed for comfortable reading. It highlights how investing in the physical environment and tools can genuinely make the act of reading more enjoyable and, less of a strain.
I love that they covered the gear because it acknowledges that the physical act matters. It's not just about the words, it's about the comfort, the light.
The tactile feel.
The tactile feel of the book or the convenience of the e-reader, yeah.
Yeah.
They also touch on finding books, tons of reviews across genres, curated lists, must-reads, debut novels, book club favorites, all that good stuff.
Right, it connects that personal reading experience to a wider world of discovery. And it touches on how reading is evolving, mentioning platforms like Kindle Vella.
Oh yeah, the serialized stories.
Exactly.
Right.
Which is Amazon's platform for that, showing that how we consume words is changing, but the core desire for story remains.
What stands out from this first source, I think, is how much reading is a shared passion, despite often being a solitary activity. It's about finding your next obsession, swapping recommendations, discussing ideas. It paints a picture of a vibrant, enthusiastic community.
Exactly. That feeling of connection through shared stories is powerful.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, though, and where we see the profound flip side.
Right.
That same powerful act of engaging with words, that sense of connection and discovery, can also be perceived as a threat. Our other source, which delves into banned books, makes this case with stark clarity.
It begins by stating a fundamental truth. Books are knowledge, and knowledge is power.
Simple as that?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
When access to certain books is restricted or denied, it's not just about removing content. The source argues it's an affront to our ability to think critically and form our own understanding, essentially pushing towards a narrow, controlled perspective.
And the numbers shared in this source are genuinely startling. It points out that in just the 2023-2024 academic year, over 10,000 book bans were recorded in American public schools.
10,000? Wow.
Yeah. That's more than double the year before. This isn't some historical footnote. It's a massive current wave impacting young people's access to information.
It was particularly significant, according to data cited from organizations like the American Library Association, ALA, and PE America.
Which champions literary freedom.
Right, is who is initiating these challenges.
Yeah.
72% are coming from pressure groups and government entities. not primarily individual parents.
So it's organized.
It appears so. And the source highlights a striking concentration with over 1,200 challenges in Texas and over 900 in Florida in a single year. That suggests these are often coordinated, systematic efforts.
So who or what is being targeted? It might be easy to assume it's just, explicitly inappropriate material.
Yes, that's the common assumption.
But the source reveals a much broader pattern. The books being challenged aren't random. They are disproportionately by authors of color, LGBTQ+ authors, and women, often dealing with themes like race, sexuality, gender identity, and history. Voices that have historically struggled for visibility are now facing organized attempts at removal.
This raises the question, why are books that seem relatively innocent or simply explore diverse human experiences ending up on these lists? The source gives some almost unbelievable examples.
Right.
Alice's Adventures in Wonderland was banned in China way back because talking animals were shown interacting equally with humans.
Seriously, talking animals.
Yeah. And later, in the U.S., it was challenged for allegedly promoting drug use because a caterpillar smokes a hookah.
A fictional caterpillar smoking a hookah leads to a ban. That's something.
It is. And think about the Lorax, that classic children's book about protecting the environment.
Yeah, Dr. Seuss.
It was banned in parts of the U.S. because it was deemed too critical of the logging industry. A story encouraging kids to care about trees was seen as subversive.
Wow. It's fascinating how many books now considered classics faced significant opposition.
Oh, absolutely. The Lord of the Rings was challenged for being satanic due to magic and, yes, hobbits smoking pipes.
Hobbits smoking pipes again.
Yeah, it seems to be a theme. And the Harry Potter series, despite its clear themes of friendship and battling evil, was challenged repeatedly for witchcraft.
Of course. And here's the absolute height of irony, noted by the source. Some of the most challenged books are those about censorship itself.
Like Fahrenheit 451.
Exactly. Ray Bradbury's powerful warning about a book-burning society has been banned because of its language or portrayals of religion. We're literally banning books that critique banning books.
Ray Bradbury understood this dynamic perfectly. The source quotes him saying, "There are worse crimes than burning books and one is not reading them."
That hits hard.
Yeah. And his character, Captain Beatty, articulates the censor's goal chillingly. If you don't want a man unhappy politically, don't give him two sides to a question to worry him. Give him one. Better yet, give him none. That sentiment, sadly, feels incredibly relevant when looking at these challenges today.
Let's highlight a couple more specific examples from the source that underscore the themes being targeted. Dear Martin by Nick Stone, which explores a Black teenager's experiences with police brutality, was banned under the guise of having racial tendencies as a negative attribute of society.
So basically, for talking about racism.
Pretty much. It's a clear example of challenging a marginalized voice sharing their truth.
And A Wrinkle in Time, a beloved children's fantasy,
Not a classic,
was banned for being complicated, anti-religious, and containing dark magic.
Yeah.
The author, Madeleine L'Engle, noted she wrote the book that needed to be written, trusting young readers' intelligence to grapple with complex ideas.
Yeah.
A stark contrast to a world in the book where children are forced into identical conformity, which kind of mirrors what censorship can attempt.
And The Giver, now well known thanks to the film, faced challenges over themes like suicide and murder. The source asks, quite rightly, are we meant to pretend difficult aspects of the human experience don't exist?
Exactly. How do young people even begin to process the harder parts of the world if we remove the safe spaces like literature where they can encounter and discuss them?
Counterproductive.
Totally. Even very old stories aren't immune. The Brothers Grimm collection was actually banned after WWII based on rumors it contained Nazi propaganda and violence.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And John Green's Gates to Hand, Looking for Alaska, faced bans for depicting teenage sex and profanity. The source points out this often insults teenagers.
Yeah.
By assuming they can't engage thoughtfully with challenging topics in a fictional context.
Here's one that really makes you pause from the source. The Wonderful Wizard of Oz.
Oz? Really?
Yeah. Banned in the 1920s, partly for depicting women in strong leadership roles and being considered worthless for children.
Strong women. Can't have that.
Apparently not.
Yeah.
It highlights how challenges can reveal underlying biases and attempts to maintain traditional power dynamics by removing representations of alternative roles.
To Kill a Mockingbird, a true cornerstone of American literature, has been banned repeatedly for its handling of racism, sexual themes, and language.
The irony is just overwhelming.
It really is. A novel that forces us to confront injustice and bias is targeted. The source makes a crucial point that readers are capable of engaging with uncomfortable or historically problematic content.
And discussing it.
And discussing it critically, which is essential for learning.
And a truly heartbreaking example mentioned is The Perks of Being a Wallflower.
Yeah.
Challenged for themes of homosexuality, drug use, and sexual content. As the source notes, this is a book about young people in dark mental places, reaching out, trying to find connection and help.
Yeah.
Banning books like this doesn't protect vulnerable young people. It isolates them by removing stories where they might see their own struggles reflected and find a path toward understanding or seeking help.
Looking historically, censorship isn't a new phenomenon. The source traces attempts to suppress knowledge back to ancient rulers like Shi Huangdi or Caligula.
Right, it's always been there in some form.
And it draws the chilling parallel to the Nazi book burnings in 1933. This isn't a novel trend. It's described as part of a longer pattern of fights over what is in curriculum and what is kept out of it, battles over who gets to define knowledge and history.
But here's the crucial part, and where the story turns hopeful. The source emphasizes that every single book they highlight, despite being challenged, ultimately serves as proof that human curiosity and the desire for knowledge tend to prevail.
Okay, so there's resilience.
Exactly. These books didn't vanish. They often found wider audiences precisely because they were challenged. They circulated, they were discussed, they became even more influential.
Exactly. There's a resilience in literature and in readers. They quote Kurt Vonnegut saying, "To hell with the censors, give me knowledge or give me death."
Classic Vonnegut.
And Mark Twain's classic, "Censorship is telling man he can't have a steak just because a baby can't chew it."
Perfect.
These quotes underscore the absurdity and the fundamental harm of censorship, which treats adult readers like infants.
And returning to Ray Bradbury's warning, you don't have to burn books to destroy a culture. Just get people to stop reading them.
Oof. Yeah.
That highlights the danger of making books difficult to access or creating an environment of fear or shame around reading certain stories or exploring challenging ideas.
But the fundamental truth, as the author Neil Gaiman beautifully puts it and is quoted here, is that every child is different. They can find the stories they need to. And Judy Blume, whose own books have faced countless challenges, offers simple, powerful wisdom. Let children read whatever they want and then talk about it with them.
Just talk about it.
Right. We won't have as much censorship because we won't have as much fear. The source concludes that at the heart of most banning attempts is indeed fear.
Fear.
Fear of difficult conversations, fear of challenging ideas, fear of young people learning to think critically and independently.
So pulling these threads together then, what do these different sources tell us about books and reading? On one hand, it's that deeply personal pleasure, the comfort, the escape, the joy of discovering a new world or idea, the connection with a community of fellow readers.
And on the other, it's a powerful act of seeking knowledge, forming your own perspective, and engaging with the complexity of the world.
And because it is so powerful, the sources show us it has always faced opposition from those who wish to control access to information and perspectives.
So what's your role in this dynamic? As a listener, as a reader?
Well, the act of reading itself, especially reading widely and diversely, seeking out different voices, different ideas, even uncomfortable ones, is a direct way to push back against efforts to narrow the scope of knowledge available.
Based on what we've explored, we encourage you to actively seek out all kinds of books. Don't shy away from titles that have been challenged.
Right.
They often contain the very ideas someone didn't want you to think about. And critically, support your local libraries and the librarians.
Absolutely crucial.
Who are on the front lines defending intellectual freedom every single day.
Stay aware of discussions happening in your local community regarding school or library collections. These debates often start at that level. And talk about the books you read, especially the challenging ones. Open discussion is one of the most powerful tools against fear-based censorship.
As Supreme Court Justice Robert Jackson is quoted in the source, reminding us that fundamental rights like free speech may not be submitted to vote. They depend on the outcome of no elections.
Powerful reminder.
The freedom to read is fundamental to all other freedoms.
So here is a thought for you to carry forward, drawn from these sources on banned books. Think about the quiet power embedded in the simple decision of deciding what you choose to read. And consider the profound responsibility that comes with actively seeking knowledge and exploring different perspectives in a world where some people would genuinely prefer to give you only one side of a story.
Or none at all.
Or maybe no story at all. Your personal choice to read freely is a form of powerful, quiet rebellion.
And if you're looking for more incredible book recommendations, insights, and connection with passionate readers, the source mentions hookedtobooks.com as a community and resource hub where you can find suggestions to continue your own reading journey.
Go forth, maybe find a book that's been challenged, and discover for yourself why someone might have been so afraid of the ideas it contained.
Keep reading, keep questioning, and keep defending the freedom that makes all other freedoms possible. The freedom to read.